What is up, fellow sickos? I'm Dan Favale. The 2025-2026 NBA season look-ahead train continues to roll along. We're on to the Orlando Magic. I have the distinct pleasure of being joined by a first-time guest. They don't know what they're in for now, so they'll have to reconcile that later. But I am joined by Philip Rossman Reich. He hosts the Locked On Magic podcast, Break Podcast. Go check it out. And he is the senior writer at Orlando Magic Daily. You can find the links to his work and his social media profiles will be in the podcast and YouTube description. Philip, thank you so much for joining me. Apologies in advance since it's your first time. You don't know what you're in for, but how the heck are you doing?
I am doing good. It is my honor to be on the HardwoodKnocks podcast. Love the work that you guys do. I do listen occasionally. I have like 20 million podcasts that I listen to while I'm working, but there's so many
podcasts out there.
But I do appreciate you guys because you hit the whole league, and that's not always the case in national podcasts. So definitely very honored to be on the show.
And with that, we'll get into why Paolo Banchero will request a trade from the Magic within the next
100%.
2 years, right?
That's how this goes. Probably to the Lakers.
Yeah, I forgot. I needed to be better at naming bigger markets. Man, this team, they're so fascinating, but I think we have to start with the basic question is everyone kind of recognized that this was the offseason, if not the last offseason for the Magic to go after it on the trade market. They did. They get Desmond Bane in a move I certainly just did not see coming. What do you make of just kind of their offseason in their totality? The Paolo extension's in there. They get Tyus Jones, but mainly you go out, you get Desmond Bane. How do you feel about identifying him as that guy and then the price paid to bring him in?
Yeah, I mean, it's very clear that the first thing is the Magic believe that Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner are players that you can build a championship team around. Now, whether that is a good bet or a bad bet, I'm sure that there's millions of ways to debate that. But the first step to winning a championship is saying, like, these are our guys. We need to maximize them as much as possible. And with the way that salaries are structured, the way that the collective bargaining agreement is, this had to be the summer that the Magic made an aggressive move. They went for it a little bit last summer when they had their kind of last bite at free agency, their last opportunity to spend money in free agency before the cap started to get to them. And it didn't work out. Look, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope had a really poor season. Like, I think if we would have done this podcast last year, you would have said something very, very similar, saying like, oh, the Magic pushed some chips in. They got some skin in the game now. They went out and got this great veteran, this champion to help.
They teased us though. Because we were doing Bleacher Report's live free agency show at the time. They were like the first team to make a move with KCP. And all Grant and I could talk about was this works, and it's clearly not going to be the only major move that they make. Like, they're really going in this offseason. They were a tease.
They were a little bit of tease. And look, Jeff Weltman is very much a fan of continuity, believes that, they won 47 games in 2024. They made some major strides and took some major steps and believed that they had another leap in them just based off of how young they are. And they're still a very, very young team. Obviously, things didn't work out. Why they didn't work out, I can't tell you. Injuries played a part in that, obviously. Just Kentavious Caldwell-Pope was probably the wrong kind of shooter, just not enough of a volume shooter for who the Magic are. And again, he just had a bad year. Like, what are you going to do? And
they didn't have Nikola Jokic either.
Or LeBron that doesn't help. But look, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope had his worst 3-point shooting year since I think 2016, back when he was with Detroit. So he's not just a shooter because of Jokic and LeBron. Just with the volume that he shoots at, he shot 5 threes per game. And the Magic play a slow offense anyway, not a very high volume 3-point shooting team. Probably not exactly what they were looking for. And I've had this conversation with people. Like, I think that he would have found a way to right the ship, or he would have been fine if Paolo doesn't get hurt 5 games into the season. There's just a little bit of a baseline that needed to be established that, like, if Paolo gets hurt in late November, early December, rather than October 30th, maybe that's established. Maybe that rhythm's there. Maybe he understands the role and where his shots are coming from a little bit better. And look, he shot over the last 18 games, he shot 47% from 3. So he had a nice little stretch at the end of the season, helping Magic make the playoffs. But it very much felt like the Magic needed a different kind of shooter. And the question, I think, entering the offseason was whether the Magic could get that shooter without compromising their defense and adding a player who's just such a negative on defense. A lot of us had like the low hanging fruit. Anthony Simons, Colin Sexton were kind of like the two guys. If you weren't going for a star like LaMelo Ball or Trae Young, which I don't think the Magic were super interested in, but like Anthony Simons, has never been asked to defend in his life, in his pro basketball life. Like, I'm like, no offense to the Portland Trailblazers, like not exactly a sterling defensive environment. Going after Desmond Bane just felt like it was the perfect cultural fit. And so the Magic, just kind of back to the original point then, the Magic believe that Paolo and Franz are two stars they can build their team around. Knowing that Franz's extension kicks in this year, Paolo would get his extension. Everyone knew it would be max. It was just to the degree of what max would kick in next year. They knew they'd be a second apron team next year. And I don't think people understand how expensive this Magic team is going to be in the 2027 season. They had to push their chips in now. They had, if they were going to go for broke, if they were going to build a championship team, they had to do it this summer. And so, like, the cost is big. If it doesn't work out for whatever reason, look, Paolo and Franz are good enough. The Magic should be in the playoffs every year, regardless, as long as they're healthy. They had to push their chips in and they had to go for it. And I think, again, Desmond Bane is a really good cultural fit. Like, he may not be an all defensive team level player, but he's going to hold his own and compete on defense. And he is a different kind of shooter. He's going to take 7-8 threes per game. He's going to be able to create a little bit off the dribble. He can do more than just be a 3-point shooter, which I think was ultimately what Kentavious Caldwell-Pope's problem was, is that he's just a spot up shooter. And if the spot up shots aren't going down, it's just like, well, what do you do with him? Desmond Bane is going to find other ways to score. And I think that is what the Magic were looking for to try and unlock this offense, which is very clearly like the big missing ingredient for this team.
Now, I think, though, his shooting does get most of the attention, specifically the pull-up three-point shooting, and it will be huge for this team. But is there something else about him that you think maybe he's flying under the radar? I know you mentioned already sort of the ball handling with him, but is there anything else about his fit with Orlando that people should be clocking more so than just this guy's going to get up threes?
Yeah, I mean, I think the fact that he's averaged 5 assists per game the last 2 seasons is a big deal. If you ask most people, they would say the Magic's biggest need is a point guard. And the Magic obviously have not addressed the point guard position. They're still going to kind of go into the season with this. I'm calling it a point guard. They're moneyballing the point guard position between Desmond Bane, Jalen Suggs, Paolo Banchero, Franz Wagner. They can create a point guard in the aggregate. And I think that's the idea of what they're trying to do. So you add in a player like Desmond Bane, who, when Ja Morant was out last year, took on a lot more of that playmaking responsibility, can keep the ball moving. It isn't just going to stop in his hands. I think that's a big thing because the Magic have been kind of a low pass team. If you just look at like total number of passes, they play a slow pace anyway, but they can devolve a little bit into an ISO team. So having another guy that you can kick out to, attack as a secondary creator, initiate offense with, I think that's a big deal. And on top of that, like, Desmond Bane's a dog. Like, he doesn't back down from anybody like that. I mentioned that it fits perfectly kind of in the culture of the Magic. The Magic, they're the kind of team that just fouls you and dares the refs to call everything. They don't back down. Like, Jalen Suggs is barking at you the entire time. Mo Wagner is a known instigator. Paolo Banchero is an underrated jabber during games. Like, Franz Wagner will even talk a little bit. Like, he's a little more quiet, but like when he gets into it, he'll talk on the court. Like, Desmond Bane's just going to fit that perfectly. The Magic are going to be extremely annoying to play, especially if they're beating you, because they're going to be talking a lot on the floor.
I was doing the Cavs look ahead with Justin Rowan of the Chase Down podcast, and we were talking about the Magic as the team that you always, no matter the outcome, win or lose, you're always going to feel playing them. And I guess you're always going to hear while you're playing them as well. What you mentioned is interesting about the ball handling element, the assist from Desmond Bane. If you look at what I think we all assume is going to be their starting lineup, they kind of just have 5 guys that can all do stuff with the ball now. Is there any chance that we see Jamahl Mosley break out some funky stuff? I don't know if it's more like, is it guard screening for guard? Is it Franz Wagner maybe screening? Is there anything you want to see or that you think that we might see differently from this team than in years past?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is something they've always been toying around with. Like, the Magic are very much a team that's like, if they sense that you're switching and your defensive strategy against them is to switch, they're going to pick out the guy they want guarding Paolo, and they'll bring Jalen Suggs over and have him set a screen for Paolo. Or, they don't run a lot of Paolo Franz stuff together, but, we're seeing, as we're recording this, Eurobasket hasn't started, but we're seeing with Germany, they're experimenting a lot more with Franz as a screener and diving to the basket a little bit more and setting up on post-ups a little bit more. And just for the record, Magic assistant coach Randy Gregory is one of the assistant coaches for the German national team. The Magic have a lot of staff with the German national team. I don't think this is, Alex Mumbrou is going to do what Alex Mumbrou does. He's a decorated coach in EuroLeague. That I don't think any of this is happening in isolation. So I do think we'll start to see them use Franz in different ways. I'm sure we'll talk about the shooting. So that's part of the reason why they have to do that.
Jump shot watch.
Yeah, it's not good. But it's better, but it's not good. I think we'll see them use Franz in different ways. I think we'll see them use inverted pick and rolls. I know Jamahl Mosley hates being asked about those. It wouldn't shock me if we see some more lineups about Jonathan Isaac with Jonathan Isaac at center, even though he kind of struggled in that role last year a little bit. There's certainly the possibility to go with a kind of more all shooting lineup or, a super big lineup with Paolo and Franz sliding to the guard spots or Paolo sliding to the center spot. So there's a lot of potential to be creative with this roster. I think the struggle with being creative was just the Magic didn't have enough shooting to make things functional. And so you couldn't experiment with Jonathan Isaac at center or Jonathan Isaac in different places because you didn't have enough shooting to give the space for that to work. You needed Jonathan Isaac to be a spacer, which he obviously wasn't. But hopefully with some better shooting and some more versatile offensive pieces, they can begin to test some of the limits of what they can do with these lineups and, create some advantages that way.
Or do you have any question marks or concerns about how they might integrate Bane? Or is this a no notes type of acquisition?
I mean, there's look, still a little scarred that Kentavious Caldwell-Pope was so bad. He shot 32% from three last year.
Is it the Blazers are the team? The Blazers are the team where it seems like players go there and shoot better from three, or the Magic, the team that players go there and they're just going to shoot. I haven't given that enough thought to make the analogy, but
the Magic haven't had an offense outside the bottom 10 in the league since Dwight in 2012.
It's a long time.
It's a long time. I've watched a lot of bad offense. The joke was when after game 3, we're sitting in the media room and all the Celtics writers were like, man, that game was ugly. And me, Jason Beattie of the Orlando Sentinel, Mason Williams, who was with Magic on SI, we all kind of perked up and we're like, that's normal. We can name 4 or 5 games that are, we started rattling off 6, 7, 8 games that were just so much worse than this. It's just this is how they play. This is how they have to do it. My concern is still that the issue is a little bit the way that Paolo likes to play, where they're just a slow down team. They don't play fast enough to kind of take advantage of it. And look, I know we'll get into some of the Paolo stuff here, but I think some of the issue with Paolo is he's still a young player learning when to speed the game up and when to slow it down. And his default and his preference, I think, is to play this kind of, not ugly, but this very 2000 style ISO game where he's going to kind of stop and survey the defense and jab step and do his moves to get to his spots. And I think that does take guys out of rhythm a little bit. The Magic struggled so much to create fast break opportunities, and they're still so young. So I think some of these are just young team mistakes. It's the concern that I still have is just that the Magic just don't move the ball enough. They're not that they're selfish or guys don't want to pass the ball, but everything's just maybe a step slower than it needs to be to play at the level that this group clearly wants to play at. And so just these little things that knock you a little bit off rhythm, that still concerns me a little bit, that the Magic won't take full advantage. I think they'll be better. Don't get me wrong. I don't think Desmond Bane is going to suddenly shoot 32% like KCP did. But my concern is that they won't take as full advantage of this opportunity. And some of it might be the stars aren't compatible, or the stars have a ceiling on them, which I think is definitely a thing.
So when you mentioned the transition stuff, because this is actually something that's been we've nitpicked on this podcast a bunch of times, and I understand the Paolo of it all, but even when he's off the floor, it's not like they're blitzing these teams after live rebounds or even when they're forcing turnovers. Is that just a philosophical thing? Is it a personnel issue that extends past Paolo? I look at this team, and even before they had Desmond Bane, but now that they do, I'm like, no, you can run off live balls for sure. And even Paolo is just grab and go. I know, but like you said, his proclivity is to I want to slow things down and break down against set defenses, sure. But I think I've been more like even the numbers were kind of all like I had Franz, and I'm a Franz Wagner skeptic, full disclosure, but he was 4th on my MVP ballot, and then he got injured like 5 games later or something like that early in the season.
Yeah.
But like it even felt like they were leaving like low hanging fruit on the tree with stuff like that when Paolo's off the floor or injured too.
Yeah, no, I don't think that's wrong at all. I mean, typically when you think of young teams, you think of teams that just want to go get out and run, use their speed, use their athleticism, and get as many easy points as possible. And the Magic just don't do that, or they don't do it consistently enough. Obviously, you get a few here and there throughout the course of a game, but there's definitely, I think there's just a lot of youthful mistakes. Like they turn the ball over a lot on fast breaks. They make the wrong read, or they're a little late on a read, perhaps in transition. Some of it is Jalen Suggs is one of the few guys that really likes to push the tempo, and him being out for a good chunk of the season, or him having to be the lead guy for a good chunk of the season probably slowed the team down a lot too. And so that's, I think, part of it. And, while I am optimistic that they'll be able to kind of work without a point guard, I think there are intangible things that come from a point guard, from just knowing how to manage a game, how to, when to push the tempo, where to get the ball, where to be, how to fill lanes, how to like kind of put guys in the right spot. And the Magic just don't have that, or they haven't really had that. Like Markelle Fultz was solid for what he was, but he's a limited player. I think Tyus Jones being on the floor is going to help this team a bunch, and how he works might tell the Magic like, hey, we might actually need a point guard here. I don't think Tyus Jones is a starting point guard. I think we saw that experiment play out in Phoenix, although Orlando's a much better defensive atmosphere and environment for him, but he's got limitations. I wouldn't want him starting, especially if you're trying to win a championship. But I think that there are still, there's some maturity things. There's just some like experience being in these situations, some instinct things, and again, some personnel things that I think keep the Magic. Again, these are easy points. These are easy ways to score. They don't have the great 3-point shooting to like kind of spread the floor and twist defenses around in transition. Everyone just starts walling the paint and says, okay, try and, we may only have 2 guys going up against these 3, but none of your guys were worried about at the 3-point line. Or if they take a 3, let's see you make some before we go out there and guard it. So it's all connected. A lot of it just goes back to the shooting being so bad. But, I think there are definitely things the Magic need to do to increase their transition and play faster.
Unless Phoenix totally corrupted Tyus Jones, like he should at least help with some of the game management perspective, like even in half-court situations for them. Do you think that addition is getting enough attention, or is it getting the proper amount of attention? Because another sticking point with what it seems like with Jamahl Mosley is just if you're not like a super plus on defense, he doesn't really want to give you a chance. And I'm not sure who needs to hear this, but like Tyus Jones is not a super positive impact defender.
Yeah, I don't think people are giving it the full attention maybe it deserves, but at the same time, it also feels like a very short-term move because he signed a 1-year deal. It feels like it's more stable. They're more using him to stabilize the bench group. And who knows what that bench group's going to be. Like if there's one complaint I have about Jamahl Mosley and his rotations, he is very insistent on a 10-man rotation that does sometimes include an all bench lineup. And like, we're at the point where personally, I think the Magic this year probably need to go 9-man. One of their 4, like Suggs, Bane, Franz, Paolo, one of those 4 need to be on the floor at all times.
Should it be 2?
It probably should be 2. By the playoffs, it should be 2. But they need to figure out what the right pairings between those 4 are. But yeah, like two of those 4 should probably be for big games, especially 2 of the 4 should be on the floor at all times. So, I think that Tyus is there to kind of stabilize things, maybe be, take Anthony Black under his wing to try and help him get a little bit better as a point guard. But I do think that's going to be stabilizing. Like, again, like he's an excellent 3-point shooter, unless something's in the water here in Orlando that keeps people from shooting. That's going to help on its own that he is an elite catch and shoot 3-point shooter. Like what, 44%, something like that last year, even in Phoenix. Like they have the defense around him. Like he's going to be in lineups where Anthony Black is next to him, where Jalen Suggs is next to him, where Jonathan Isaac's behind him. Goga Batadze's behind him. Like he'll be in lineups where they can cover for his defense, and he's not starting. He's not playing 30 minutes a game, so they can probably do well in those minutes. But I think the stabilization that he'll bring is going to be really important.
The Magic have shown they have the stomach for patience based on how long they waited to even go in on a move like Desmond Bane. But I think what's interesting about their situation now is they have other moves they could make, but like you've changed like your personnel to the extent that you would want to change it. And so do you view this as sort of a, I don't like boiling it down to make or break, but like this is a telltale year for Jamahl Mosley, right?
Yeah, I think so. And you know, I'm a big believer that coaches have roles the same way players do. Some coaches are the rebuild coach that kind of build the foundations for everything and get you to the playoffs. Some coaches are, Steve Clifford was this way. He gets you to the playoffs. He's not getting you to the next round or the round after. Like he built but Steve, like everywhere, like the years in Charlotte, those Charlotte teams outplayed their talent. The years in Orlando, those teams outplayed their talent. Like he gave them the base to be playoff teams, just not much more. Some coaches are the guy that gets you over the hump to the championship. And, sometimes you don't know who that coach is until they actually win one. This, I think, is a big year for Jamahl Mosley to show that he's not just the rebuild coach. I think he's done a really good job, obviously, building a culture and having everybody believe and willing to run through a wall for him. But now comes the pressure of results. And, it was a miracle they finished 41-41 last year with all the injuries that they had. And the fact that they rallied, I think they went, what was it? They went 12-6 over their last 18 games to get to 500 and win the division, win the 7 seed. Like that was coming off of a 1-6 homestand to go 12-6 the rest of the year. I think that was a masterful job of like everyone kind of getting a gut check and going. And I thought he had a good game plan against the Celtics. It just, didn't have the talent to execute it fully because the Celtics were a really good team. This is a big year because now you're a second apron team next year. And I'll let the Magic are paying the tax this season, assuming they keep their salaries the way they are. The Magic are paying the tax this season for the first time since 2012. When Paolo's extension kicks in next year, they'll be, if not in the second apron, very, very close to it. That means it's win or bust. That means you are competing for a championship. And if this team is the 5 seed again and loses in the first round, if they don't, like, I don't think they have to win a championship this year, but they clearly need to be pointing in that direction. And if they're not pointing in that direction, the axe is going to fall on the coach, or the pressure is going to fall on the coach. Now, obviously it's like, depends on what happens and how you get there, but Jamahl Mosley's proven he can build an elite defense. Now he's got to prove that he can bring the offense up with it, start winning games in the playoffs and winning playoff series, and pointing this team to competing for the big prize at the end of the season, because that's what the DeVos family's paying for at this point. And if you're not pointing in that direction, then you probably, in the way the cap is situated, you can't stay in that tax bracket for very long.
I have to ask this question, I feel like every season. What makes Paolo Banchero such a divisive player? Is it just the efficiency? People are looking at the stats and they see, like below average or barely average true shooting percentage or effective field goal percentage or field goal percentage, and that's just it. What makes him so polarizing?
Yeah, that's the $1 million question, because like I sit here and I watch him every game and I'm just like, this is the exact kind of guy that the NBA markets like crazy, or the NBA should be marketing like crazy. He scores a lot of points. He's, unique build. He's a good kid. On top of all that, he's a matchup nightmare. Like everyone around the league, I think, respects him. And it just comes down to the Magic aren't on TV a lot. And so the only way people watch him is, I hate to say it, like that's still a thing. The Magic just aren't part of the national conversation. And so the people talking about Paolo are people trying to compare him to other players, or people like just box score watching. And look, the advanced stats aren't great. The efficiency isn't great. But I would sit here and say, like, well, look at the shooting that he has. Look at the fact that I think he was in the top 10 or top 15 in the league in most double teams face. Like, he faces a wall of players in front of him every game. It got to a point last year, and we've danced around this. The Magic shot like 31 point something % from 3 last year. it
His
got to
teammates were in this. The B-ball index has that great tool where you could look at where the teammates
yeah.
rank in the percentile. The 0th percentile of catch and shoot 3-point efficiency. That's the
Yes.
type of spacing.
Yes.
Paolo
And
Banchero's been working with his entire career, basically.
and like last year, it got to the point where he'd be taking these contested mid-range jumpers, and there'd be open players in the opposite corner. I'd be just like, that shot is probably a better, higher percentage shot by the analytics than passing to an open corner three at this point. And so there's a general lack of trust. At a certain point last year, the 3-point shooting just became endemic. It just became like, we don't trust we're going to make threes. Like, we'll take them if they're open, but you could see that little bit of doubt in some of the players as they were taking threes. It just got to that point last year, and it was just, you can't do very much at that point. This is a big year for Paolo because now he has Desmond Bane. Now he should have a little bit more spacing. And so you do want to see him take a little bit of a leap efficiency wise. Like, look, he's still the thing that most annoys me about the Paolo discussion is people talk about him like he's some 28-year-old established veteran, and this is as good as he's going to get. He's still 22 years old. Like, he's entering his, I think, year 23 season. Like, he's still going to get a whole lot better. And now that the Magic have worked to improve their roster, hopefully the idea is that he is going to make those passes and have the teammates make shots and be in a better spot to get good looks. And then it just comes down to his decision-making of when do I pass? When do I shoot? When do I go get mine? The things that you typically see stars struggle with, like all of his like first 3-year numbers, you compare him to like LeBron, to Kevin Durant. And I'm not saying he's as good as those players. Those guys had better numbers through his first 3 years, but he's doing all the things that elite NBA players do early in their career. Now it's just, okay, take that next step to superstardom and, do it in front of people to kind of change the narrative about you.
Yeah, I think I'm most interested to see like what and whether they have enough shooting. I think Jalen Suggs is kind of sneaky important to this too. Is Paolo's 3-point volume? I don't know if maybe it can still climb, but I think it's like kind of where it's gonna be. But he has like some of the lowest shot quality metrics around the rim, and he doesn't finish as well as like he plays with this like balletic brutality that I think he should just be able to score well from everywhere. And his finishing at the rim, even relative to the quality, it's always just been a little weird. And I'm wondering now, we talk about having more space for him to operate. Maybe he can get to the mid-range. Those are higher quality. Like, I want to see if he can get to the basket more, see if he can finish at more efficient clip there. And that might be where having a healthy Suggs who had shot the ball really well in 23, 24, and of course Bane might help him out a ton too.
But the biggest thing, the biggest thing that I said coming out of Game 7 against the Cavs in 2024 is they just need to find a way to get Paolo and Franz just a few easy shots, like 1 or 2 more catch and shoot threes. Give Paolo a shot in the dunker spot. You never see him like get a dump off to the dunker spot or a kick out for a catch and shoot. Like, the Magic just don't have enough playmakers or creators to take the ball out of Paolo and Franz's hands. Like the last 2 playoff series, I would literally tell people, like, these playoff series have been Paolo and Franz banging their head against a wall, and they put a lot of cracks in those walls. They're good enough to put cracks in the walls, but they can't break through. They need someone to get them an easy look here and there. And that's the difference between a guy, scoring 25 inefficiently and a guy scoring 25 on pretty good efficiency is like, oh, he got a layup because Jalen Suggs drove the lane and dumped it off to him in the dunker spot. Or, Desmond Bane drove and kicked it out to Franz, who made a 3 for a change. Those easy shots just aren't part of their diets right now. And I think the hope is that with more creation, more playmaking, kind of more secondary playmaking, they can, maybe their shot and their usage just go down a little bit, but they'll get some easy shots that theoretically means they can score the same amount of points on fewer field goals.
Do you think or not that he would have any trouble, but do you think there could be an issue where he has to get used to what it's like to scale down? Like, this is someone where basically 2/3 of his 2-pointers for his career have gone unassisted. And so putting him in easy spots would actually be a stark departure from the role he's needed to operate in for most, if not his entire career.
Yeah, I mean, I think there'll be a little bit of adjustment there. And it'll be curious to see how the Magic use Desmond Bane and how much kind of responsibility they give him. Because, I think the whole idea, like, it isn't like adding LaMelo Ball or Trae Young, which was like kind of the big move that, that everyone was like, oh, the Magic should be in on Trae Young. If the Hawks are going to trade Trae Young, Magic go after him. And I'd be like, no, because that takes the ball out of Paolo's hands. I don't think they want to do that. Like, they still want Paolo as the primary initiator and creator. But whenever you add a new player that's going to take shots and need the ball in his hands a little bit, you're going to have to adjust a little bit. You're going to have to get a little bit creative and get used to doing something different. And so I think there will be a little bit of an adjustment on that front. But at the end of the day, like if you find a way to keep winning, if you find a way to kind of make those pieces fit, then you're happy to make the sacrifice. Like I think they're like Paolo gets compared to Carmelo Anthony a lot. And I think a lot of the Carmelo's still a much better player. I'm not saying that.
I think
but
Paolo is actually already a much better defender than Carmelo.
Oh yeah, I would probably agree with that. And there are things about Paolo's defense that he needs to keep getting better at, but he's engaged on that end. Like I still think that's one of the miracles of Jamahl Mosley is he's really taught Paolo at a young age to care about defense, even if there's still things he can get better at. But like Carmelo Anthony, like he has to kind of learn when to assert himself, when to kind of take a step back. And like, I think Paolo is a willing passer. Like, I don't think he's some selfish player who just wants to chuck shots and put up numbers. Like he still averaged like five, almost 6 assists per game last year, I think. He's going to want to pass the ball. He is a willing passer. He just hasn't had the teammates that he trusts to do that. And at the end of the day, like the Magic's best bet was Paolo ducking his head, getting to the foul line, getting to the basket, and trying to make something happen to make the defense collapse around him.
All right, so we've reached the point of I have to ask you about where are you at with Franz Wagner and hashtag Jump Shot Watch.
We're recording this. I don't know when this is coming out, so I'll timestamp this. Recording this on August 21st in the evening. If you would have asked me yesterday, I would have been like, it's getting better. I'm not worried yet. I'm officially, and I'm a little bit concerned mode. He's gone 3 for 24 on threes for the German national team in 5 exhibition games. Wow. He was 0 for 6 against Spain the day that we're recording this on August 21st. The hitch is gone. Like that's the best news. It's not pretty yet. The results just aren't there. And it's, I no one has any answers for why. Like he does everything else well. He's shooting well from mid range. Like he's still able to get to the basket. Like his free throw shooting's been weird this summer, but he's an 80+% free throw shooter. I don't think anyone's super concerned. No one knows why the 3-point shot's gone as wayward as it has. It was obviously wayward before the oblique injury. The oblique injury made it worse. He shot significantly worse after his injury. That included the little hitch that a lot of us noticed. I am officially in concern. I want to wait and see what it looks like in real games and in the Eurobasket games. And on top of that, like context for Eurobasket, they're very much like the Magic. It's Dennis Schroeder, Franz Wagner, and nobody else on the ball. And they're shooting extremely poorly. That team is usually a pretty good shooting team. But Maudolo's hurt. Like all their shooters are struggling so far in the exhibition game. So maybe that'll change when they get to Finland and start the games for real. He's still scoring a lot of points. He's still going to get you the points, but the shot is still very, very concerning. And I think it's to a point where it's just like, okay, like what's up, or stop shooting threes, Franz. Like that's just not a good shot for you anymore.
So much of the focus is paid to the 3-point percentage. It's kind of a testament to how good he is already without having that in his arsenal, basically for half of his career, 75% of his career. What else do people need to zero in on about Franz Wagner, whether it's some of the secondary passing, some of the defense, he plays with like this live dribble, fuck you, like a little bit when he gets into the lane. There's a lot of stuff about his game as even someone who, like I said, is a Franz Wagner skeptic that I think it's easy to appreciate when you watch him. What should people be looking at aside from the 3-point shooting with him?
I mean, his footwork is incredible. Like when he is in the open floor going downhill, he probably Euro steps as well as Dwayne Wade or Manu Ginobili does. Like his Euro step and his ability to weave his way through defenses without dribbling, or after he picks up his dribble, is incredible. Like he'll do this thing where he'll kind of take it. Like if a guy is like setting up to take a charge, instead of Euro stepping like past him, he'll step to the side and just shoot a floater over them. Like his footwork on the move is just incredible. And like, that's obviously like the big ticket with him is if he is going toward the basket with a head of steam, like he can stop on a dime, he can change directions on a dime. Like there's nothing you can do. Like the whole point of a defense against Franz is keep him on the perimeter, keep him from picking up that like extra gear going downhill, because once he has the basket in his view and a little bit of speed behind him, it's over. Like he's gonna figure out a way to score on you or make the right play on you. I am also convinced that he's going to be an he has all defensive team capabilities. I don't know if he'll ever get there, because I think Jalen Suggs will take all the attention on this team. But I think he doesn't look as strong as he is. But he will take contact and kind of stonewall guys off the dribble. And I think, and he can defend multiple positions. Like he can defend smaller guys as much as he can defend bigger guys. So everything about Franz Wagner's game is awesome, except the 3-point shooting. And that's obviously so important, especially on a team that doesn't shoot. I think he still led the team in 3-point attempts per game last year. He shoots like 5-6 threes a game. And so it's just like, if he could figure out how to even shoot like 33%, go 2 for 6 on threes every night, like that would be such a huge boost to his game and such a huge boost to the Magic. But everything else about his game is just it's delightful to watch. And it's just, sometimes I wonder if Franz understands how good he is. Because I feel like his personality, and that's why I think him and Paolo work so well together, honestly. His personality, I think, is to defer to people. Like I think he prefers being the Scotty to Paolo's Jordan, if that comparison makes sense.
How do you read? I didn't throw this in the outline I sent to you, but what do you make of, like, there's been people who've, I don't want to say they tried to pit them against one another, but you look at some of the lineup data and it's going to show like, oh, the offense is just way better, or the Magic are way better when Franz plays without Paolo. I think that there's just a lot of context missing from that.
Yeah.
Mostly, what's the type of lineups they're going up against? Is that an actual conversation at all?
I don't think it's a conversation among like Magic fans. Because like, look, at the end of the day, if you want to win a championship, you need multiple top 20 players. Like you need as many good players as you can get. So it shouldn't ever be either or. It's both and. Like the Magic we're not talking about the Magic as a potential Eastern Conference contender this year, if not for both Franz and Paolo, or both Paolo and Franz. Franz is typically the first guy that comes out of the lineup when the Magic break their lineup. He plays a lot with that bench group. And the Magic have typically had a very strong bench. When Mo Wagner's healthy, Goga Batadze, Jonathan Isaac's an excellent defender. They'd have Cole Anthony. They've typically had, over the last 2 years, so maybe not typically, but over the last 2 years, they've had a very strong bench. And Franz is the anchor of those bench groups, allows him to flourish against weaker defenders. I think that there is probably a little bit of, I don't want to say lack of respect for Franz, but just Franz doesn't, I think, garner the same kind of respect from defenses that Paolo does, or the same way to defend him that Paolo does. Because just Paolo is just a tank. Like you have to throw as many guys as you can at him to try and slow him down. But I think that context matters. But like, look, Paolo's still taking, I think Franz is more of the analytics darling. He is essentially only taking layups and threes. He added some mid-range shots this year. It's still like below 50. It's still like fewer than 50 for the entire season. He's pretty good at making them. Like, I think there's a case to be made that Franz should be looking for more mid-range shots, especially if the three's not going to fall. Because he hits the mid-range at a pretty high clip, which makes the 3-point shooting even more confusing. Paolo takes a lot. I think Paolo tends to take the superstar shots, or the shots a star thinks that a superstar takes. And those are obviously low percentage shots. Whereas Franz, I think, very rarely settles for those kinds of shots. Like he's very much like like rim or 3-pointer. Like those are really the big areas that he tends to shoot and score in. So I think that's all part of it. And again, it's just the lineups are going up against. Paolo's typically going up against starters for the most part when he's in. Franz gets to eat a healthy bit of diet against reserves.
I mean, when they're on the court together, Paolo's going to draw not only more attention, but presumably it depends on the size of the other team's best defender, but you're going to face those toughest matchups at that end too.
Yes.
So I'm a big Jalen Suggs believer on offense, a truther, maybe sometimes spreading disinformation about it on Borderline. I don't know.
Oh, I'm your propaganda minister then.
The more I think about this team, I don't want to underrate the impact that Tyus Jones and Desmond Bane can have on the offense, but All right, you've added two guys. Like Desmond Bane is the caps lock shooter. Tyus Jones can shoot, but we don't know how much he's going to play. And the more I thought about it, I was just like, they need Jalen Suggs to be really, really good on offense. And I'm not just talking about the 3-point shooting, which I think, I don't want to say like it's guaranteed, but I think he's shown enough on the higher quality looks the past 2 years, even before he was injured this season, that I'm comfortable with it. But you mentioned the transition stuff before. Like it really felt like something changed in 2024 a little bit where he was helping them with that. But then there's also just the decision making on drives as someone who could do that. And so the more I think about this team, like I know he's paid pretty well now, but he just feels like this massive swing piece for how good they could be on the side of the floor they've struggled most.
Yeah, I'm with you there 100%. I think you look at his full season numbers last year and they don't look great. Like I think he ended up shooting like 31% from three or something like that. But if you look at his first 5 games before Paolo gets hurt, and so small sample size here. So don't, I fully acknowledge that. He shot, I think, 46 or 47% on catch and shoot threes on like 6 or 7 attempts per game in those first 5 games. So again, small sample, but to me, that was a continuation of what he did in 2024, where he shot 42% on like 5 or 6 catch and shoot threes. And so if you're like thinking like, oh, the Magic only added Desmond Bane as a shooter, I think one of the problems the Magic have had in Jalen Suggs' career is like they didn't know what his ideal offensive role was. Obviously, you draft him 5th. You think he's going to be your number 1 guy. Like when the Magic, coming out of Gonzaga, everyone thought this is a future like on-ball, star type player. And the Magic are obviously in a rebuild mode, and they just gave him the ball and said, go do your thing. Mm-hmm. And so he was, I think, a little overwhelmed being the lead guy, having to handle the ball as the primary creator, primary playmaker, just kind of recklessly going to the basket. Like he's a maniac on the floor on both ends. That might be why he gets injured a lot. But he's all effort. He's 110%. And even that probably isn't enough to describe his effort. And so I think what I'm most interested in is, yes, the Magic want him to be a secondary creator and get out on the break and kind of lead them that way. But they don't need him to do that as much. Like he is the 4th option on offense. Like Desmond Bane is, 20 point per game scorer, pretty established guy. He's theoretically the 3rd option on offense. I'm really interested to see what Jalen Suggs does when he is maybe not strictly a 3-and-D type guy, but like the main diet of his offense are these catch and shoot threes that over the last 2, when the team has been healthy over the last 2 seasons, he's shown he's going to knock them down at decent volume. Mm-hmm. And so I think the Suggs development is more, they're evolving him into a place where, like, yes, he can attack off the dribble and do all these things, but he doesn't have to. His primary responsibility on offense is to space the floor and be a 3-point threat. And when the time comes, when the closeout comes, to attack it. And then he'll get some of those reps, obviously, like coming off the bench or with whatever groups he's in when the lineup's broken up. But if the majority of his minutes are alongside Paolo, Franz, and Bane, or with even two of those guys, he's going to be in a space where he's going to get better quality looks, and the defense is going to be shifted away from him, where maybe he can get better looks at the rim, where he was decent in 2024, like last year. Just he had to do so much last year. Like once Paolo went out, his role changed. Once Franz went out, his role changed, and he just isn't that player. He isn't a primary option guy. But as a 4th option guy, who's the Magic describe him as the head of the snake on their defense, the guy that like really gives them energy on defense. Like I think that's going to unlock him in a way that we haven't seen him unlock, because the Magic needed too much from him, or more than he could give them on a winning team. Now I feel like he's in a role that is going to really emphasize his strengths and maybe cover up some of his weaknesses a little bit on offense.
This isn't a perfect comp because the team context is so different and they're different players, but this feels like the Derek White going to Boston type bump season for Jalen Suggs offensively is like what I could almost see it being, and I probably would even consider predicting.
Yeah, something to that effect. I think that's a fair way to describe what we could see from Suggs. Like I'm glad that I'm not the only person that is like looking at Suggs's numbers and being like, there's something here. There's something that could develop. And like, look, at the end of the day, like Suggs has to stay healthy. And that's the biggest thing he hasn't proven in his career. Like he's been mostly injured for 3 of his 4 seasons. And I think the Magic, and this is not their fault, but I think the Magic played off the injury that he had as not as serious as it is, at least publicly to the public. Like the trochlea injury is a very weird injury that he had. The surgery that he had to repair it is not a small injury. He had what's called a mosaicplasty, which is like it's not reconstructive, but they take like muscle or cartilage and they literally like lay it down as a mosaic to try and strengthen that knee. And so I think there were some bigger concerns with that injury, and it wasn't as like initially they made it sound like, oh, he's just getting a scope. And I know like every surgery no matter what, but a scope is as basic as a surgery gets for a knee. Mm-hmm. This was not that. Like he had a pretty involved surgery. It sounds like he's gonna be fine for training camp. He's on the court. They've shown photos of him working out on the court. I don't know if he's playing or doing contact, but the injury stuff is still the biggest concern with him because he's had 1 healthy season in 4, and it was a good season. Magic benefited a lot from it, but he's got to prove that he can stay healthy.
Do you think there's a chance they were just excited it wasn't an oblique injury last year?
100%. 100%. I think anytime anybody twists, they hold their breath a little bit.
Can we run through some of like the younger guys on this team and just get either your early impressions, role expectations, what you'll be watching for, whatever next season?
Yeah. You mentioned like Jalen Suggs as a big swing guy. I think Anthony Black's a huge swing guy for this team. And it's someone that if the Magic are going to compete for a championship, like I'm pretty certain what the Magic are going to get from their starters. The bench concerns me a little bit, just because there is a lot of inexperience and not a lot of offense. Like Tyus Jones is a solid offensive player. Mo Wagner, we're probably not going to see him till December coming back from the ACL. And in that instance, like who knows how ready he's going to be. I think the Magic need to figure out what Anthony Black is first and foremost. Like obviously he's, I think, a really strong defender. Offensively, no clue what he is. The favorite stat that I have with him is like in wins, he averages like 10 points in the 39 wins last year. He averaged 10 points per game and shot 41% from 3. In 39 losses, he averaged like 8 points per game and shot 29% from 3. And so it's like, that's correlation, not causation, but it like kind of shows you the wild swings in his game and how good he can be and how good the Magic can be when he's that good and how much he can struggle and how bad the Magic were when he struggled. And obviously I think the Magic leaned on him a little bit more last year. They don't really know if he's a point guard. They don't really know how to use him offensively. He fits their identity defensively, but he's the next big contract they have to worry about. Like he's extension eligible next summer. If you ask me what do you pay Anthony Black, I have no clue. I don't know what the answer to that is. He's probably destined for the restricted free agency that all these guys are going through right now. Cause how do you know what he's worth at this point? And so I think figuring out what his role is and how to make the most of him. I think that's the swing between the Magic being merely a very good team and being a championship level team. Cause now you have an extra ball handler. You have another unique player. Maybe you have someone that you can make someone else on the roster expendable. So you can help cut some costs like that stuff. That's kind of the next big question. And the other guy that I'm watching is Tristan Da Silva. I think Da Silva is going to
they have no wing depth on this. I was like,
they have no wing depth
doing this. There's like, oh my God, I didn't realize they have no wing depth on
Da Silva's going to play look, he stepped in a big moment early in his rookie season last year. Maybe hit the rookie wall. Maybe wasn't, maybe was too passive and too much trying to fill in gaps for what the Magic needed, considering all their injuries. The Magic need him to be a reliable 3-point shooter. And like, unlike Franz, Tristan's shooting very well in the Eurobasket prep games. Like he is playing pretty well for Germany playing for Germany as they prep for Eurobasket. They need him to be a reliable kind of 3-and-D, just traditional 3-and-D guy. Just like we don't want you to drive. We don't need you to do anything crazy. Attack when it's open, shoot when it's open, keep the ball moving, just, kind of stay out of the way a little bit. But that's something he can do. That's why they drafted him. And so they need to kind of show that these draft picks are going to pay off because like We're not going to talk about Jett Howard because I don't think unless he suddenly starts shooting the cover off the ball and holds his own on defense, he's just not someone the Magic trust.
I don't think he's ever going to hold his own on defense.
I don't think so either. That's why I took him off my board and was shocked when the Magic took him.
My favorite Anthony Black stat is that he is shooting over 40% on corner threes for his career on like 120 something attempts or whatever outside of the cleaning glass has on garbage time.
Yeah.
Is that like a possible was just like, because you mentioned they have these other ball handlers, can they just streamline his offensive role to be like, hey, like if you got a fan out in the corner and he moves pretty well off the ball, like his defensive floor navigation, if you want to watch someone on defense, like whether they're guarding the ball or not, like he is one of those players. Like he will run through a gauntlet of bodies and angles. It's insane.
It's just finding a way to have him consistently contribute on offense and not be such a negative. And like, again, like some of that, like I like AB is the sweetest kid and he's still very much
looks
a kid.
like a kid.
He still looks like
a baby. Yeah.
Yeah. He's well, me and one of the other reporters actually adopted him. He's our child. But I sometimes think he doesn't understand how good he is. And like he's just like this very quiet, like, I don't want to say shy, but he's this very quiet kid. And even in a group of young guys, like he still feels like he's the rookie. And so it's just like, how do you get him to understand, like, this is what I'm good at. I can do these things. I am good enough to do these things. And again, like you're drafting 18, 19-year-olds. It may take, you don't want to give up on them too soon. So yeah, like getting AB in the corner, like again, another area where having like Paolo and Franz sucking in attention, another guy, getting some attention, it's all about, having better players helps you get easier shots. And so like, if you can get him open threes in the corner, especially, like he's a reliable shooter and he'll hit them more than you think.
Do you have any, none of us expect him to play a huge role next season, but any early impressions of Jace Richardson after watching him in Summer League? He's
small, which hurts him. But he's feisty. Like he is very much like, if the Magic were going to draft someone who's maybe a little undersized, he's the kind of guy they would draft. Like he's fearless. I know he was really strong at finishing at the rim at Michigan State, and that carried over into Summer League, which was really encouraging to see. He'll fight on defense, and like that's half the battle is just, are you going to put in the effort defensively? I don't know how much you'll play. Like there'll be injuries. There are always injuries during the course of the season. Do I think Jalen Suggs is going to play 82 games? No. Like you'll probably still miss 10, 15 games over the course of a season just because of bumps and bruises or the Magic trying to protect him. Like we have a running joke with Magic fans. There's a running joke among Magic fans. If Jonathan Isaac has a hangnail, he's out for the next month. Jalen Suggs could have a shoulder detached, 3 fingers falling off, his knees needs to be replaced. Yeah. He's back. He rubs some dirt on him. He's back in the game. Like that dude is held together with duct tape and super glue. But like, look, the Magic are hoping to play an extra month of basketball. So if they need to preserve him in some way, they need to make sure they have a plan to do so. So like Jace, I think will get some opportunity. The shooting looked like it'll translate. Like he's looked pretty comfortable at the NBA 3-point line. He just seems very, very fearless, which I think is very, very good. The guy that I'm actually really more interested in seeing if he can get playing time is Noah Penda. I think like Penda's not ready. Like he's still really, really young and raw, but the tools for him to be this like point forward type guy and this like versatile inside out type forward, like he does look a lot like, play a lot like Boris Diaw at his best.
Okay.
He could be like, when the Magic drafted him, it felt like, okay, this is the kind of player that, makes Jonathan Isaac and his $14.5 million a little bit more expendable if you're looking to cut costs somewhere. Because, $14.5 million for a guy that's playing 15 minutes a game, probably not the best use of your resources if you're, and look, I think we'll see what JI does this year, but Penda does a lot of good things defensively. He needs a little bit more seasoning, but that's a prospect that I'll be very interested to see what happens when he gets an opportunity inevitably during the season.
With Richardson, and I think if you're small and you use the word fearless, which is perfect, you always have to have a level of skill of getting your shot off if you're going to get into the paint. I came away from Summer League because I just don't have a lot of priors on these guys except for the top guys when they're coming out of the draft. The way he's able to get into the paint and get his shots up over the trees is just was insane. And so I always want to temper expectations for someone
Yeah.
who's listed at 6 foot, was drafted at, what was it, 25th. But my God. And then you mentioned like the defensive feel, like, okay, the 3-point shot, cool, but the defensive intensity is bonkers too. So I'm excited to see him. The thing you mentioned a couple times now, there is their depth. And we talked about it with the Wings. Is there a chance that they, or not even a chance, but do you expect them to need to make some, not a huge move, but some type of a move to address it? Because it's not just, oh, look at the lack of wing depth. It's they have a bunch of bigs, but they might be super fragile up front with Jonathan Isaac, Wendell Carter Jr. Like, he played in 68 games last year. It felt like a revelation.
That's a career high.
Yeah. Oh, it was a career, okay.
Career high. He played the most games consecutively in his career last year. He like the same game that Paolo got hurt, he had a knee issue, and like he missed the Cleveland game, came back against Dallas, re-hurt his knee, missed 2 weeks. He played the rest of the season, no problem. It was a miracle. He couldn't shoot, like struggled on offense like everyone else did. But it was a miracle that he played the whole season.
So do you think that that's something that they're going to have to, or yeah, I would even use the word have to, where they're going to have to look at, do we have to make some type of someone who's durable or we know can log a certain type of minutes, maybe not just, even if it's just to eat regular season innings, or is it we want someone as part of the playoff? Because they have a lot of guys, but I think you said this before, they have a lot of younger guys, and so they are by nature mysterious, mystery boxes, wild cards, whatever you want to call them, and you're now entering this weird window where I think we've seen contenders, which I would classify the Magic as, struggle with this time and again of, well, how do you balance player development of key youngsters versus, well, we have immediate expectations now. What's our stomach for going through these learning curves, these growing pains?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of, we'll see where they're at in February. Like if they're like the 3 seed, half game behind New York for 2, game and a half, 2 games back of Cleveland, and they're like looking at themselves and like, we're good enough now. Like there's no waiting for next year. Like we need to go for this now, or we're not getting enough from Tristan to Silva. We need to fill that role. Like we're not going to win in the playoffs. We're not going to go as far as we want in the playoffs. If we don't fill this role, we'll figure out the financial stuff afterward. And again, by then, like they'll have some guys that are expendable, to be perfectly honest. But if, by February, like Mo Wagner will be healthy back in the rotation. If he looks good, Goga Bitadze at $7.5 million or $8 million, whatever he is, that's a movable trade chip to get something of value. And a team would take him and make him their backup center or their starting center, which he's certainly earned. Like he's a luxury. Again, like Jonathan Isaac, his contract is weird. He's $14.5 million, but he's got 2 years left, but he's got 3 years left, including this one. But each year only becomes guaranteed after he plays, I think, 52 games. So he's quasi non-guaranteed, depending on how things go with his health. But like I said, like if, Noah Penda looks better than you think, now, maybe that's the time to move him. So they got some pieces that they can still move around. Whether they do so, I think depends on how ready they are. Like if you ask me what my prediction for the season is like, well, the match could be good enough to get home court advantage. They'll, they'll probably be around 50 win. Well, I think we're getting to that later, but they're going to be around the 50 win mark. They're going to get to the second round of the playoffs, and they're going to use this season to figure out, okay, like how close are we? Like we pushed all these chips in. Are we going in the right direction? Where are our holes so that we can get over the hump and get to that next step? But if we get to February and they're sitting, like, let's say they're sitting in the 1 seed. I don't think that's so crazy to say.
No.
It's not, it's not likely, but it's not super crazy. If they're sitting in the 1 seed and they're like, well, we need this to beat Oklahoma City, we need this to beat Denver, we need this to beat Houston, then they need to go for it. Like, so it's hard. Like, it's hard to predict the trade deadline now. Like, we can see like the contours of some things as we're sitting here, but what they ultimately go for and what they ultimately need, that has to play out on the court, because like at the end of the day, we don't know how this group is going to work together. We don't know if these things are going to work the way we think they are, and how they adjust from there is going to be the question that we'll answer as the season goes on.
This, I think, is, I don't know if it's easier to answer, but it's worth asking now, because their payroll situation is just kind of funny, because Jet Howard is almost the perfect salary to get them out of the tax. You do have to fill that roster spot. I do view them as a team that is not going to pay the tax, because why start the repeater clock when you're about to get so expensive? knowing that Jet Howard alone doesn't get you out of it, like what would be a player? I know you mentioned the weirdness of Jonathan Isaac's contract. Does Mo Wagner come back and you feel like Goga Batadze is expendable? What's one or two players that you're looking at and saying, okay, they might be on salary dump watch entering this season?
Yeah, I mean, Jet Howard's obviously the obvious one because like someone's going to take a second draft flyer on him. Like young player, give him a chance.
New Orleans will do it, and then they'll trade him to get out of the tax next year.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Goga Batadze, like he feels like a luxury. Like I don't know if that gets them completely under the tax. His contract.
Yeah, he's over 8, so I think
he's over 8. Yeah, and it's de-escalating, so it's front loaded. It's a front loaded deal, which is the Weltman special. He just feels like a luxury. Like that guy should be in an NBA rotation. And on this Magic team, he's just not. Like, they have a emergency third center and a 2-way contract in Orlando Robinson, but for the first time ever, the Magic could probably trade someone, they have an open roster spot, and go into the mercenary market and find someone on the buyout market at the end of the year. So like if you trade a Goga Batadze and you still need a third center, someone's going to wriggle free.
Yep.
Is that when they bring Nikola Vucevic home? Probably not. But fans have asked me about him, and I'm just like, no, stop it, guys.
Hey, you want floor spacing?
Yeah, I'm a Vooch guy. Vooch is my guy. No, I don't.
He's why you got Franz.
Yeah,
he's still giving back to the franchise.
Yeah, exactly. The Bulls are just a franchise that keeps on giving. But Batadze feels like that guy. He's a position of need around the league. So like you could even have 2 contenders make a trade like that, where, a team that's trying to buy, like I always say, the trade deadline's about buyers and sellers. Like, you're not typically going to find 2 teams that are going to do something mutual, because it becomes mutually assured destruction. If I'm helping you and we meet in the playoffs, you're going to hurt me with that. But like Goga Batadze is the kind of player that this is the low hanging fruit on that end, but like the Lakers need bigs, they need centers. Not that they have any wings or guards that the Magic want, which is probably what kept the Batadze trade from happening this summer. But like you can find a way to make something happen and probably get to playoff level teams that accomplish what they want to accomplish that way. So it feels like I'm still shocked that Batadze signed the contract that he did, because to me, he was already a rotation level big, and the Magic did not have a rotation spot for him. But that feels like the move to make if you're looking to do something at the deadline or looking to get under the tax.
This will be the second team, with the first one being the Knicks, that I've campaigned to trade for this player. A Goga Batadze for Justin Champagnie deal with Washington makes a ton of sense. Washington could use additional. They have Tristan Vukovic in addition to Marvin Bag. In addition to Alex Sarr. But go ahead.
I think the Magic just acquired Julian Champagnie's G League return rights.
What?
his brother, right?
Justin Champagnie is on the.
Julian, his brother.
Yeah, I know who Julian Champagnie is on the Spurs.
They acquired someone's G League returns, right? Maybe I have that wrong. I don't follow the Osceola Magic as closely as I should, perhaps, but.
But something like a trade like that where it cuts payroll, and if you get someone, you very rarely see like the big for wing trades, but like Washington might be a team where.
But and Washington's seller, obviously not so much a buyer. But
and they quietly have. I mean, the Hornets would make a lot of sense, but they don't have anybody who's cheap. I mean, if they were going to give you Liam McNeely, but they won't. They don't have anyone who's cheap who should interest the Magic, and just Washington still has all this flexibility.
And the Magic still have an open roster spot because they're $1.3 million under the first apron hard cap.
Yeah.
And they can't sign anybody because that would minimum contract would exceed the hard cap. So I think the Magic will be a player in the buyout market. I think they'll probably look to supplement themselves a little bit there. Like I've seen some people pitch like, oh, when Washington buys out Chris Middleton, like that's who the Magic bring in. I'm just like, it's not a terrible.
I mean, he's a playoff killer, but that's just like
not
another
a crazy
higher,
idea, but like if you stick Chris Middleton where Tristan da Silva is, that's not going to kill you as much as like relying on him to be a starter.
Are you ready?
It's a long way away.
Yes, it is. But I think, do you think that the goal is going to be that they'll end up ducking the tax somehow, just given the state of their books moving forward?
I didn't realize how close they were. The fact
They don't
that
have any contract incentives that they're like waiting on either. I think everyone's salary is
no,
just
I mean the
straight
only
for
one
them.
is like Isaac's guarantee, which I think like at this point it's a likely incentive because he hit it last year.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think the tricky part about it is the Magic want to win, and so they're not gonna, if they're like the 4 or the 5 seed, would they like, I don't want to say abandon the season because they're not trading anyone that important to abandon the season, but are they gonna, if they're the 4 or the 5 seed or they're not having the season they thought, like, yeah, absolutely, like duck the tax and do that. But if they're not, and obviously they can't add a ton more salary, they're not going to do anything to, I don't want to say sabotage their team because that's again, we're not talking about that level of player, but they're not going
I
to do
think
anything.
Jet Howard's indispensable personally. That's
Yeah, I mean, Jet's a good locker room guy. But he is, but not in that way. But yeah, like if they can, I'm sure they would. But I feel like they're not going to do anything out of their way to do so, if that makes sense.
Are you ready to enter our cookie cutter lightning round portion of the podcast?
Yeah, let's do it.
We've talked a lot about flaws, strengths of this team. What do you view as their biggest need right now ahead of the training camp and the regular season?
3-point shooting. I'm not gonna believe they can make threes until they do. I'm willing to go with this experiment at the point guard spot, like I mentioned earlier. This money balling the point guard position. I still think they're going to get to a point, and it may be in the playoffs this year. It may not be something that happens. It may just be something they realize when they're playing those big games. They need a point guard, or they just need someone. They need someone in that starting lineup who knows how to organize things. But I don't think that's a question we can answer until they fail at it.
Is there anything about this team, a strength, weakness, storyline that you think is flying under the radar right now?
Under the radar. I think the biggest thing is people. We haven't talked a lot about him, so let's use this as a vehicle to talk about him. People underrate Wendell Carter. I think that like the fan, like I was on Locked On Fantasy Basketball with Josh Lloyd, and like he would say, like a lot of fantasy owners don't understand why Goga Bitadze doesn't play. Because Goga Bitadze racks up all the stats. Like he's he'll get you 8 and 8 off the bench in 15 minutes. Like he's gonna pick up a lot of rebounds. He's gonna block a shot or two per game. Like he's the fantasy darling, and no one understands why the Magic don't play him often. And I'll be like, no, like Wendell Carter is like as much of the linchpin of this defense as anyone else because he can step out and guard on the perimeter. He can guard. He's a solid post defender. You look up his numbers against Nikola Jokic. He's among the best defenders against Nikola Jokic in the league, which again, like Jokic still gets like 25 and however many, but he defends a lot of those low post bigs really well. He was a central figure and a really important part of why the Magic looked so impressive in their series against Boston. And, that was a 5-game series, ended up, being pretty pro forma, but they frustrated Boston with the 3-point shooting because Wendell Carter was able to switch on to Jaylen Brown fairly comfortably. Jaylen Brown made those shots. Boston made all the shots they missed against, Boston made all the shots against Orlando that they missed against New York. And it was very frustrating to watch that. But like Wendell Carter is a bigger piece of this team's defense that people I think give him credit for. And if he can bounce back offensively, if he can, and he's going to be in a smaller role offensively. So if he's averaging, 10 and 10, 10 and 10 is probably too much, but like if he can make threes at 32, 33, 34%, be a little bit more present in the paint and the dunker spot, get up his assists a little bit. He can be a real big fulcrum for why the Magic's offense figures some things out, even if he's not scoring. So he does a lot of things that just don't show up if you're just box score watching.
I know you said that you think they should run a 9-man rotation, but if you're like looking and trying to think, okay, who will be the 10 most used players this season? Who do you have in that? It does feel like the starting lineup is at least locked.
Yeah, the starting lineup should be set. It'll be Suggs, Bane, Franz, Paolo, Carter. Coming off the bench, they'll Tyus Jones, Anthony Black, Jonathan Isaac, one of Mo Wagner or Goga Bitadze. Like I said, Mo will probably be out until December with the ACL, recovering from the ACL. And then I do think like Tristan Silva is going to hold down that 10th spot at the 3 essentially. I think that's kind of the 10 men that they're going to go into the season with.
What do you think that there's going to be now that you're throwing Bane and Tyus Jones in the fold? Like, what should we expect from the look of their secondary lineups? I know you mentioned a lot of like bench mob stuff, but like if you're trying to build the ideal, like it's the non-core lineup, like what direction do you want to see the Magic travel, either in terms of personnel makeup or just the style of play?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of want to. I kind of like the lineups that they had that were just Suggs and Franz together.
Okay.
And so I think what you might see is like Franz is usually the first one out of the lineup. They'll usually bring either Isaac in. They would bring like 2024. They'd bring Ingles in. So maybe that changes a bit. Maybe it'll be like Black coming in for Franz, and so they'll run a Suggs, Black, Bane, Paolo, Carter lineup for a little bit when they break those lineups. But maybe you take Suggs out earlier too, and you run Tyus a lot with maybe Paolo and Bane, and then you have a Tyus, Suggs, Franz kind of core lineup to open to be your bench lineup. So it would be Suggs, Tyus, Suggs, Franz, Isaac, and Batadze, let's say. And so you have a good pick and roll threat between Tyus Jones and Goga Batadze, perhaps, or Mo Wagner is also excellent on pick and roll, so that transitions easily. You have a good defender, a good perimeter defender in Suggs to cover for whatever Tyus Jones is dealing with. You got Isaac behind him. You know, you're still that group is still going to be pretty good defensively. It's just that's going to be the group that you can run a lot more with. I think a lot more with. I think so. I think having Suggs with that group helps a ton, and just generally like. Getting Suggs together with Tyus, I think, helps cover whatever defensive issues he might have.
When you're looking at the players who will play, do you see like any potential for a Stark, riser, or faller where you could look back on this and be like, oh, he was squeezed out of the primary rotation. Oh, or this dude played a bunch more minutes than I was expecting.
Yeah, I mean, I think Anthony Black's the answer to that. Where, you know, he could either be a guy that's like, oh, this is the sixth man essentially. Like, why do we even have Tyus Jones? Because Anthony Black has such command over everything. Or it's just like, we don't know what this kid is. Maybe we need to give Jace a try. We can't play Jace too much with Tyus Jones, but like, Tyus Jones is kind of that guy too, where it's just like, well, he's struggling on defense. He's not giving us very much. Maybe we need to get what we can for him, or maybe we need to try Jason that spot next to Jalen Suggs and just say like, this, it's just something different. So, I think those guards are still a little bit of a question mark. And again, like, we just don't know what Anthony Black is at this point. And again, we're 2 years in. So it's just like, okay, you got to show us who you are, or maybe the Magic need to move on.
Tyus Jones was actually my answer to the, because I think he probably has a cap unless there's an injury on how much he will play. But I actually kind of think, like, oh, if Anthony Black plays well, and then you mentioned even if they give Jace Richardson a look, when we were talking about the tax thing, this is a couple weeks ago, I was writing something in my head. I was like, is there a scenario where it's midseason, he just gets shipped to Utah, bought out, and signs in Denver? That's how they duck the tax, because Anthony Black is so good, or they decide that they don't need what he's bringing.
To that point, like a guy who gets squeezed out, Tyus probably gets squeezed out when they make the playoffs, and you start limiting his minutes a little bit more. Because just the defense, you lose so much defensively, unless he's just so important to functioning on offense, which like Corey Joseph was last year. And, Anthony, look, it's crazy. I agree. When the Magic signed Corey Joseph last summer, people asked me, why are they signing him? It's just like, he's just a good vet. If he's playing, something terrible has happened. And what do you know?
Something terrible
many
happened. Things terrible happen.
Many terrible things happen. But like, he stabilized that lineup, and like, Corey Joseph was a good argument for why you actually need a point guard, and why even like a Corey Joseph figure was so important for that team.
Is this can be to some extent matchup dependent, but for them, do you think that their go-to closing unit will wind up just being the starting five, or is there the potential for Jamahl Mosley to futz and fiddle there?
I think generally it'll be that starting five. Like, I think Mosley throughout his tenure as the coach has been willing to ride the hot hand a little bit. Like, he's had a lot of moments where he will the bench group will be playing really well, and you'll just leave him in for the whole fourth quarter. Like, that hasn't happened as much, or that hasn't happened since they've got really good. But he's done that before. I think there's the potential for, like, if they're on offense, especially, maybe Tyus Jones is in, and they either take out, depending on matchup, they take out Suggs or they take out a player who's not shooting well, or Carter or something like that. Because Mosley likes to like have the guys figured out. Like he got yelled at by fans last year because he had 2 instances late in the game where he didn't call timeout after a missed free throw rebound. And like I'm generally like I'm of the school that's just like I don't have a problem with that. Like you're going to catch the defense off guard. Like if you run into a problem, maybe you need to call timeout, which happened in one of those games. But otherwise, like, you know, ball's in the hands of your best player. Just go. Like what play are you really drawing up that isn't just that? Catch the defense off guard. So having a guy like Tyus Jones that you can get the ball to and make that decision in transition might be more advantageous. But generally, I think their closing lineup is going to be their starting group. Those are their 5 best players. And I think generally the Magic's overall philosophy is we just want to put our 5 best players on the floor as much as possible.
Is there a weirdo or funky lineup you'd like to see Mosley try this year?
I would like to see him try, like, I know we just did this whole thing about point guards, like this point guardless lineup that's like Bane, Paolo, Franz, Isaac, maybe Suggs, like try putting J.I. put on the weight last year and it was a disaster, but playing him at center is still a good idea. Playing, like having some minutes where Paolo is the 5 and you're playing 5 out. Like the Magic didn't have the shooting in the past to really do that. Now they do. Like if you could put a lineup of Tyus Jones, Jalen Suggs, Desmond Bane, Paolo Banchero, Jonathan Isaac, and probably have enough shooting to get by, or Tristan Silva instead of one of those guys. Mm-hmm. You probably have enough shooting to get by now in a way that you didn't before. And so I'd like to see them try, these small ball center lineups. Like Steve Kerr loved playing Paolo at the 5 during the World Cup a few years ago. And like, it didn't work great, but that's, I think, more of a function of FIBA. People think like those death lineups are like something you do all the time. It's like, no, you do it for the last 2 minutes at the end of a quarter to throw the other team off a little bit, where, it's a limited time frame. You kind of go all out, you go to the locker room, you recover, and that's that. Just having that versatility, I think, is really, really important. And the Magic, should have some freedom to try some different things. And it might depend on what other teams are doing and what they expect to see in the playoffs. Like, let's be real. The Knicks and the Cavs, they're the 2 teams that they're probably going to be going after. And the Pistons, the team like right behind them too. And even the Hawks, those are teams that are going to go big. So maybe the Magic need to try more Carter Batadze lineups together than they have in the past, which they've experimented with it a little bit. But if Carter's 3-point shot is back, they should absolutely be testing out Carter Batadze lineups, with Paolo, with Franz, with whoever's at the 1, 2, and 3. But that's probably the direction they need to go.
I want to see 4 guards. Give me Jace Richardson with Suggs, Bane, and Anthony Black, and then you could put Paolo or Jonathan Isaac in the middle. I want to see what that
something like that would be great. Yeah.
So do you have anything else that you want to talk about or you think we need to discuss with this team before we get into predictions?
I think we covered most of it. I can't think of anything, just that this team has to prove itself. Like, I think that's they're like all young teams that are kind of fresh on the scene. They've never done it before. So they gotta prove themselves.
So how many games would you, if you want to give a range, that's fine, would you see them winning? And where do you see them falling for the regular season in terms of an Eastern Conference seed?
I think like I said, I think they're going to be right around 50 wins. So I'd probably put them in like the 48 to 54, 55 range. There's definitely a world where like everything clicks. Their offense is sudden, not the best offense in the league, but their offense is top half of the league. Their defense is still elite. And that's enough to really push them up the standings and make them just a dangerous team. Like the one stat we didn't talk about here, to bring it back to shooting. The Magic's record when they shot 33% or better from 3 last year was 27-10. Like
that's such
they did not have to
baseline too. That's
33% is still the worst 3-point shooting percentage in the league. The Wizards shot 33.2 or 3 or 4, something like that percent. They just had to be competent. And by competent, I mean, they just had to be not the worst shooting team of the last 10 years. And they gave themselves a really good chance to win. So there's definitely a universe where they're like 18th in the league in 3-point field goal percentage. And that's enough to make them 12th in the league in offensive rating. And they're like 3rd or 4th in defensive rating. Maybe their defense takes a little bit of a step back. And that's probably enough to get them, to have them compete. That's enough to get them to the 3 seed in the East, I think. They should be aiming for the 3 seed. They should feel like, we're the 3rd best team in the Eastern Conference. Like anyone who is predicting us to be worse than the Pistons or the Bucks or any of these other teams, they're forgetting that we won 47 games 2 years ago, and we're still essentially the same team. We won only 6 fewer games last year, even with our top 4 scorers missing significant time. Top 4 scorers last year were Paolo, Franz, Jalen Suggs, Mo Wagner. Jalen Suggs played 36 games. Mo was out since Christmas. Paolo missed 2 months, and Franz missed 20 games. Like they were still a really tough team, but obviously like getting to 50 wins is a bigger step. So they got to do a lot of things better. And there's certainly a universe where they're like a little bit of the same as they were in 2024. And even then they're probably in the upper 40s as far as wins. That probably leaves them as the 4 or the 5 seed. But that's kind of their baseline. Unless they have another like run of injuries, like I can't see them falling much far below that.
Yeah, their floor feels like 4, and I think I'm pretty high on the Cavs, but I am not entirely convinced that the Knicks should just be favored over the Magic. I think
I get the feeling that like those teams especially, they're gonna pace themselves in a way like a team like the Magic wouldn't. Like for the Magic, like winning 50 games for the first time, they're going to go for it. Like they're going to, like that's kind of how those teams go. Whereas like Cleveland's not going to win 60 games next year. Like they're going to pace themselves a little bit. Like New York, like they know there are bigger battles.
They paced themselves in 160 plus last year anyway, though. So the Cavs might do that again. I don't think the Knicks have that type of depth. I mean, everyone's making, I think they were good signings, but they're making Gershon Yabusele and Jordan Clarkson into being like these.
Yeah, I agree with that. I'm a little worried that like not to make this a Knicks podcast. My big concern with the Knicks is that they are a function of Tom Thibodeau, and you take whatever magic Thibodeau has, and they're not the same. They're still good. Don't get me wrong, still very good, but Thibodeau is just Thibodeau.
That's honestly, I haven't heard that framing yet. That's an interesting way to frame it. My concern is I'm an alarmist, which is a character flaw. And so I look at the durability they've gotten from Mikal Bridges, other teams his entire career, Josh Hart the past few years, OG Anunoby last year. And I'm sitting here thinking, oh, they're due to get fucked. That's like how my mind
shoe's going to drop at some point.
Right. So looking way ahead into a potential playoff matchup, what is a team in the East that you find most intriguing, fascinating, even most concerning of a matchup for Orlando?
Yeah. We've obviously seen this team play Cleveland before, and they're essentially still similar teams.
Mm-hmm.
The Cleveland series, I was still so impressed with how the Magic played that series. But I think even Magic fans forget Jared Allen missed essentially the whole series. Like he took an elbow to the ribs in game 2 or 3.
Thrown under the bus afterwards too.
And
right?
And it was out. He was out for the whole series. Like he played a little bit in game 4 and left in the first half. And like, look, the Magic, you always win that first game coming back home. Jared Allen crushed the Magic, and moving Evan Mobley to the 5, I think opened the door for the Magic to make that a much more competitive series than it was. Like Donovan Mitchell still did Donovan Mitchell things. Like maybe the Magic's size on the perimeter bugged Darius Garland a lot more.
Mm-hmm.
One thing in that series was they kind of used Jalen Suggs to shut down Darius Garland in that series because they had Gary Harris to kind of help slow down Donovan Mitchell. And obviously he didn't slow him down because no one slows down Donovan Mitchell in the playoffs, but except for Donovan Mitchell's body. The Magic, I think, they're still an interesting matchup for Cleveland. I don't think they're like a pushover. I don't think that's like a sweep or anything, but the Magic tend to struggle with very big lineups. And especially like Evan Mobley is a defensive player of the year. Like he is a very good defender. They didn't get to see him guard Paolo or Franz. Like essentially like entering that series, I said, the Magic need to attack whoever Evan Mobley's not guarding. So like if Mobley's on Paolo, Franz take the lead. If Mobley's on Franz, Paolo take the lead. And it ended up like Jared Allen went out. They didn't have to worry about that anymore. Both guys were able to kind of get themselves going. So I think Cleveland is still a really tough matchup for Orlando. New York's 5 out like the Magic did a good job with Boston.
They're like 4 out. They're like 5 out fakers. Yeah.
Yeah, with Josh Hart. Yeah, you probably end up putting like Carter on Hart and like, but I don't know, like the Magic like to switch so much. It like keeping a guy away from the paint, I think exposes a quiet weakness of this defense. Like the Magic are not particularly strong defending the rim. Mm-hmm. And that's not just because they don't have a great shot blocker. Their strategy is we're going to keep you from shooting threes and try and crowd you in the paint. And if we foul you, whatever, but they still give up a fair share of shots at the rim and they can test them decently. But it always, I'm always concerned. And this just maybe my old school defensive mentality. I'm still always scared to death of not having a big able to rotate quickly to the basket and defend the paint and leaving that paint wide open. So 5 out offenses still bug me. And, again, we'll see what it looks like this year, but teams that get hot from 3, like the Magic tried as best they can to take away threes, but they've never been able to keep up with 3-point shooting. So like when they play a Boston, they make a ton of threes. It'd be like, well, there's nothing we can do about that tonight. So I still think the Magic are an interesting matchup for the top 2 teams in the East, but I think both those teams still have advantages that the Magic have to prove they can handle, which they haven't in a playoff setting yet.
I want to see a Magic Pistons series.
Yeah.
Because I feel like it would just be a slugfest. That would be so fun.
But the thing is, like, we said this before the Magic Cavs series in 2024. Everybody says they want the 90s back, and then they get it in a playoff series and they stick it on NBA TV.
Well, look, the NBA is going to, and I like it you go back and watch early 2000s or late 90s basketball, like, no thank you, but no, I can appreciate the nostalgia of it. And it's like the modern day slant because it's so foreign to us this. I don't want to use the word violence, but the physicality of it.
Oh, yeah.
These two teams are like, if the Rockets and the Magic played in the same conference, or if they met in the NBA Finals, God.
People don't understand. Like, so Magic Pistons, I think that is the next fun, like, young rivalry in the league. They've gotten into fights both the past 2 years. Like 2 years ago, Killian Hayes literally shoved Mo Wagner into the Pistons bench. Mo Wagner, like went after him. Like they had to do a pull apart. Like players came off the Magic's bench because it was over by the Pistons bench. Magic players got suspended for coming off the bench. They didn't know the rules. Last year, the Magic, like it felt like a must-win game for the Magic. They left their starters in. It was the first, like Jalen Suggs had just come back from back spasms. He played. The Magic's main starters usually all lead. Paolo, Franz. They don't start the fourth quarter. All 3 of those guys started the fourth quarter. They started on a 12-0 run to turn a 4-point game into a 4-point deficit into an 8-point lead. And then like midway through the fourth quarter, the Magic are up by like 12, 14 points. Isaiah Stewart and I forget who. Isaiah Stewart and someone got into it over by the Magic's bench. They needed to be pulled apart. Jalen Suggs actually hurt his knee in the fracas or around the fracas, and he left the game after that point. But it like these two teams, like they get after each other. There's definitely something there. We're going to get a preview of it. They're in the NBA Cup together. They're in the same group in the NBA Cup. Last game of group play for both teams. I think it probably determines who wins that group and who advances. So in Detroit. So it'll be, there's definitely something there with the Magic Pistons. I'd love to see a Magic Pistons series too.
Philip, this was great. Thank you for giving me so much of your time. Are you able just to tell our listeners, anyone who's watching, our audience, where they can find you and all the fantabulous work that you put out?
Yeah, best place to find me if you enjoy listening to my voice or seeing my smiling face. You can check me out on the Locked On Magic podcast. You can download that wherever you download podcasts. We're also on YouTube. Just search for Locked On Magic. And you can find my writing at orlandomagicdaily.com. Best place to follow me is on Twitter at PhilipRR_OMD or at OMagicDaily. I'm also on Blue Sky at PhilipRR.
You can find the links to his social media stuff and his work at Locked On Magic. It will be in the YouTube and podcast description. Again, thank you so much. This was great. Can't believe it took me so long to get you on this podcast. Rest assured, I will be pestering you again down the line. And as always, leave everybody with the shout out to the one and the only Mr. Frank Ntilikina.